Hey guys, good evening. Memorial Day is upon us, and I just wanted to touch base on some things that are pretty important to me. Wanted to, most of all, memorialize those that have been lost, never came home, or still out fighting. Actually, even those that have come back. Some of us go over and we don't come back the same. But I want to do that by creating a bit of a memorial inside the comments section. What I want to do is, if you know someone that didn't come back or has come back and served and has done a lot for you and you would like to memorialize them, put their name in the comments. You don't have to put their full name. You put their rank and the last name. You can put their rank, last name, unit. That way people that are scrolling down through the comments, if they come across them, somebody that they know, they can comment on there and leave a penny, dime, quarter, if they know, nickel, however you see it. So that's one thing that I wanted to do. I think that the memorials these days have turned into a bit of a tourist attraction, and it's kind of unfortunate that people are just going to see it as a site rather than its actual meaning. I don't think that of everybody, but it's just what I've seen in person when going to these memorials. With that being said, I don't necessarily think that Memorial Day is something that should be a quiet day. I think there's some middle ground in there. I think that it should be celebrated. We should have our barbecues, everything else like that. Enjoy the day. Just remember and take the time to pray for those that aren't here, haven't come back, or those that came back and they didn't come back the same. So what we have here, I have my grandfathers on both sides. Both of them ended up in World War II. My grandfather, Wendell, and his brother Leonard both ended up in World War II. I wasn't exactly sure where they went and what they encountered. I believe both of them were medics. But they both came home and they had very large families. And I'm a product of one of those things, so I'm grateful that they did come home and continue on a legacy. A lot of us in that family have joined the military and continued to serve. My grandfather, on my father's side, he also was in World War II. He was part of the group that stormed the beach in Normandy. And I was told that he didn't talk about it much, just know that he was there. He was a tech sergeant. Not exactly sure what specialty he had, but I presume that he had witnessed a lot of things that most people shouldn't. He came home, had a family, and again, here I am, a product of that. And I'm grateful for the things that he's done and to be here as a result of that. So for me, and why Memorial Day means so much to me, I want to give you a little bit of history of myself. And so for me, I joined the military and was flown off to basic training about 2 or 3 days after 9/11. And so I get to basic training, do my thing, and then I'm sent over to Korea. And when I first get to Korea, they tell me that if anything happens, everybody here is dead at Camp Casey. And I was like, oh, well, okay, all right, that's kind of different to hear when you first get there. But ironically, it didn't make me fear what was going on. It gave me a sense of pride in the sense that I had a duty. I needed to hold off this attack, and so reinforcements can come in, people can be evacuated, people can be saved, and so on and so forth. So I had this duty, this pride. And once I was finished with my time in Korea, Iraq was starting to kick off, and so I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to continue that pride, and so I put in for orders to Fort Hood, who were deploying to Kuwait and staging in Kuwait at the time. Now, for that, since Korea is that a ceasefire is still technically considered a combat zone at the time. From what I'm told, is that they couldn't give me orders to go from one combat zone to another. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. All I know is that I was somewhat devastated. I was going to go back to the States, and I was going to sit in the background as all my friends go to Iraq and fight for their country. And that was kind of rough for me. And one of the ways that I was able to regain some of that sense of pride is to be part of the color guard there. And what a color guard does is they escort and perform the burials for any active duty members killed in combat. And so we did, I would think, probably 100 of those, and it really brought a lot of pride to me. It really helped me out with things in that kind of missing out type of mentality. I don't know what's a better way to describe that, but anyway, so I did that for a while, and there was one funeral in particular that really set things in perspective for me. And if you're the type of person that doesn't like to hear about funerals and doesn't like to hear about the things that are associated with that and loss of life, so on and so forth, I understand if you turn off here, and I appreciate your time, and thank you for coming. So, one funeral in particular, this soldier that was killed in Iraq was about the same age as myself and my friends on this color guard. And he had been killed in Iraq as a result of an IED riding in a Stryker, which is like a wheeled armored personnel carrier that the Army used at the time. The IED had exploded underneath and killed, and I believe it killed everybody in the vehicle. When we were in charge of burying this particular soldier. So people that are killed in IED blasts are typically not whole anymore. Their body is badly disfigured and no longer whole. So we were in charge of presenting this soldier in a casket and preparing him for burial and such. So as part of that, we had decided, as well as with the mortician, decided that the casket couldn't appear as light as it was. It would seem like we were carrying nothing in the casket at all. Even though he was still somewhat whole from the mid-waist up, it couldn't seem that it was as light as it was. And so some sandbags were added to the casket and the lower portion of the casket. This made it a little bit heavier than it should have, but I think it was the right call at the time. So after the viewing, the gravesite's about 150, 200 yards away from the actual funeral home itself. And so we begin to carry this casket over, and as part of my duties, I'm on the left shoulder of the body, so the front right of the casket as it's traveling. We always travel head first. And so we're carrying him, and we get about 150 yards into it, and I can feel my arms burning, and I can feel the grip strength in my hand leaving. And I hold out, and we go parallel over the gravesite, and we center face. And when we center face, at that moment I knew that I wasn't going to be able to hold the casket anymore. My grip started to slide, hands were opening up, and the casket was coming down. Everybody else was struggling to carry the weight. I made eye contact with the sergeant of guard. Across from me, he stepped in. I stepped up at the head, continued to make the calls. We lowered the casket, and then feet faced and headed out back to the rifles. So, as small as that seems, for me it was devastating. So not only could I not go fight with my friends and fight for my country overseas, I couldn't even bury them properly. And so I was embarrassed and I was devastated. And all I could think as I was standing with my rifle behind the crowd is that I had done this soldier such a disservice. And afterwards, family came by and they all said that the ceremony was beautiful and that they couldn't have asked for anything more for their family member. And it kind of set in at that point of how selfish I was being. And I know that sounds weird, but I hadn't realized the impact that we were making for that family. The blunder with the casket is human, and it's just something that I needed to recognize as the time was me doing my best at the time to do what I could for this soldier and his family. And I struggled with it for a little bit afterwards, but I began to recognize that what happened was had happened, and it was human, and I did my best to show that family respect and that soldier respect. And that's really all I needed to do. There's still a part of me that wishes I could have gone overseas. I even commissioned back into the Navy and did my part at a trauma center and with critical care and stuff like that. But there was still a part of me that wanted to do that ultimate deed for their country. So for Memorial Day, I remember that soldier, as well as others that I had been lucky enough to come into contact with and meet and share time with. And I prefer to at least memorialize them or remember them in this time of year. And one of the things that you can do to memorialize them, as well as POWs, killed in action, missing action, so on and so forth, is setting a plate for those people in remembrance of them for when they come home, whenever it is that they come home. I don't have everything here that is exactly to spec and for this type of thing, but it's good enough for me, and it fulfills what I believe to be a memorial for them. So typically you have a tall candle with a yellow ribbon, one red rose, as well as 3 slices of lemon and some salt on your bread plate. You have the silverware in place, a black napkin, white tablecloth, round, smaller table than your family table, and it sits by itself. This is a great way to show respect to those that have been lost, respect to those that came back but were still lost, and respect to those that died doing what they believed was the right thing to do and for our country. So I'll leave you with that. Please share your family, your friends, anyone you want to remember in the comments, as well as I'll start it off. I will share both of my grandfathers and a friend or acquaintance that had recently been killed in Afghanistan as part of that bombing at the airport. But please use that comment section as a wall to remember those that you love. And I thank you for watching the video, sticking with me through my story. And thank you for continuing to show what makes this country great and why we fight for what we fight for, regardless of opinion. We'll come together and do what's best for us and our families.